Hey sweet people, and welcome back to my channel, or if it's your first time here, welcome especially. I'm Sally and I'm so glad you've stopped by. Today we are diving into 10 things that are sabotaging your digestion. But before we get into the specific points, I want to emphasize that digestion is a north to south process, and it doesn't actually start in the mouth, it starts in the brain. If the way we are thinking about food, the state we are in when we are eating is not right, you are not going to be able to absorb your nutrients from food, digest food right, all the way down the process. So with that being said, point number one is rushing. Rushing will sabotage your digestion, whether that is just trying to eat in between tasks, standing up at the counter. Not that there's necessarily something wrong with just standing up, but you get the picture. You have kids running around you, you're just trying to get a few bites of food in, you're really not calm, you're focused on anything else but the food going into your mouth. Maybe you're running out the door, you're eating in the car. Maybe you're just sitting down, but you're like shoveling your food in because you're in a hurry. This all means that we are not in a parasympathetic or a rest and digest state. A rest and digest state is necessary to do just that, to digest your food. If you are rushing around, you're in your sympathetic or fight or flight state, and your body has kind of shut down that digestive process as a protective mechanism. And so we really need to be calm in order to eat and actually get the benefits from what we're eating, which ties into number two, which is not chewing. Now, we've shifted down to the mouth, but chewing is essential for mechanical digestion. If our food is not broken down into small enough particles, when the chemicals come into play, they're not able to do their job, and once again, you're not gonna get those nutrients from food. So we wanna make sure that we are chewing, as kind of gross as it sounds, really until our food is the consistency of a smoothie. And that also is going to allow your saliva, the enzymes in your saliva that start to break down fat and carbohydrates, to do their jobs. So if you're having a difficult time with fat digestion, for one, we need to pay attention to, am I actually chewing? Because that will affect fat digestion all the way down the line. Number three, third thing that is sabotaging your digestion is water or drinks at mealtime. Now, it's okay to take little sips. Totally understand we need to like chase stuff down, or maybe you're really thirsty. Totally, I'm not saying don't have little sips, but a big mistake I've made in the past is actually taking a huge glass of water with me to my meal and like chugging the whole glass or drinking the whole glass as I'm eating. And that's especially easy if you're eating like super spicy food or something like that. This is a change my husband and I have made recently, and my husband especially has seen a massive change in his digestion, in his stomach upset after meals, which is something he unfortunately has struggled with a good bit. And this is because water is going to dilute your stomach acid, and you want your hydrochloric acid nice and ready to go by the time we're putting food in, so that it actually gets broken down. So drink your water a little bit before your meal, drink your water a little bit after your meal, sip as you need to at mealtime, but don't drink most of your water actually then. Number four is going to be no protein. So we know that protein is essential to blood sugar regulation, to many different things, but have you thought about it in the context of digestion? Protein is actually essential when it comes to our hydrochloric acid production and when it comes to our bile production. So if you have acid reflux, ask yourself, am I eating enough protein? If you have floating stools, ask yourself, am I eating enough protein? Many different things, can be contributing to this. It all affects down the line, but protein is a huge one. And number five is going to be being plant-based. Now, this ties into the protein point, but a little bit more specifically, we're talking about certain amino acids, because I know you can get enough protein if you're plant-based, but you are gonna be lacking certain amino acids. One that is really key is gonna be glycine. Glycine is really important for the lining of the gut. And so if we don't get enough glycine, if we don't get enough diverse amino acids, especially from animal foods, we can be increasing, we'll say, our susceptibility to conditions like leaky gut. And there also is a fiber piece. Fiber is really important. I'm gonna talk about that here actually in my next point. So let's transition into point number six. I don't know what I was just doing with my hand, but okay, point number six, which is eating a low fiber diet. We want to be eating enough fiber to be shuttling everything along, helping also detoxify excess estrogen, that's really important, and to be feeding the good bacteria in our guts. But we also don't want to be eating too much fiber, which sometimes you'll see that happen on like a plant-based diet, especially if it's super high diet and they're not eating enough protein. You might see like overgrowth of bacteria. But we don't want to do low fiber. We don't want to go crazy high fiber. And now point number 7 is going to be refined sugars and carbohydrates. I'm talking here specifically about like processed foods. Just about anything you can grab off the shelf in the dried section, like in the snack section of a grocery store, candies, like store-bought treats, that kind of thing. So when we're eating a ton of refined carbohydrates, especially without enough like protein in our diets, we are feeding the bad bacteria in our guts. And so we don't want to be doing that. Yeah, if you're gonna make treats, make them, do make treats. Treats should be celebrated. Treats are good. I love treats, but like make high quality treats at home. Don't eat them in excess. Eat enough protein. They're gonna be tastier. They're gonna be more satisfying. You're gonna feel better. It's a win-win-win-win-win-win situation. Okay, next point is too many veggies. So we wanna be eating plenty of veggies. I'm never gonna tell you not to do that, but if you are eating like copious amounts, especially if you're someone who's like stuffing your smoothies full of veggies, especially things like kale or spinach, that can actually have a really negative result on your belly. And it also has to do with how we prepare our veggies. So some veggies are easy to eat raw. And I love, for instance, doing like bell peppers, carrots, cucumbers raw. Of course, like lettuce is good. I love arugula in those bitter flavors, and the arugula can also really be supportive for digestion as well. But when we start getting into our cruciferous vegetables, so kale, cauliflower, broccoli, things like that, it needs to be cooked. It needs to be cooked where it is just too hard for our bellies to digest, bodies as a whole to digest. Ideally, it needs to be cooked in supportive fats so that we get all the nutrients from it. And it needs to be eaten in moderation. So eat every once in a while if you enjoy it, but don't feel pressure to eat these cruciferous veggies all the time. And especially if you're someone who notices that digestive upset when you're eating them, don't feel that you need to eat them. I just want to add though that when we do cook those veggies, it does really reduce the oxalates, the phytic acid. And I know some people will be like full on animal based, like all they eat is meat and fruit. Y'all, I love meat and fruit. And if I had to choose just 2 foods that I would eat, it would be meat and fruit. But the anti-nutrients in vegetables and plant foods, the levels really are dependent upon how we prepare them. And in many ways, our bodies are equipped to handle them as long as we're eating them responsibly. So please don't swing to one extreme or the other. Let's look at what the science actually says. Let's look at the conditions our body specifically is facing, and then let's, make our decisions accordingly. And then number 9, I can't hold up the right number of fingers, but number 9 is going to be improperly prepared grains. This also ties in on the point of those anti-nutrients, phytates and things like that. Whole grains can be a very supportive part of your diet, but we want to be soaking, sprouting, or fermenting them whenever that is possible, like soaking brown rice and then cooking it. Or that's why sourdough bread is so great, especially if it's fermented longer. It makes the grains much more digestible, and it pretty much removes those anti-nutrients in them. Now, if we're doing something like white rice, the refining of that white rice has taken care pretty much of those anti-nutrients, so you can certainly still soak it. That's not gonna hurt you, but it's gonna be easier to digest if you just go ahead and cook it. So that might change your paradigm on white rice. Like, it's not evil. I love white rice, but eat enough protein and fat with it. And if you really like brown rice, or you like how substantial that is, or the fiber is in it, great, eat brown rice, but soak it first. Okay, so properly prepare those grains. And then the last point, number 10, is going to be stress. Classic scenario that I would go through, that I'm sure many other people have gone through as well. You're at a swim meet, or whatever your competition is. You're like up on the diving block. It's time to go. It is showtime. And right in that moment, your stomach gets so upset, you're like, I have to go to the bathroom. We've all experienced this probably in one way or another, but that just shows how real the effect of stress is on digestion. I myself have some background with panic attacks, and it was interesting. It was really difficult for me sometimes to escape them, because a lot of it was centered around like I was a hypochondriac essentially, and I would be experiencing digestive upset because of anxiety, and I would have myself convinced, because I was like nauseous and like not good down there, I would have myself convinced that I was actually sick, and it was just this like nasty cycle. But all that goes to say, stress has a very real effect on our digestion. We see that when it comes to needing to be in a parasympathetic state in order to actually digest the nutrients from food. But if you feel like your diet is on point and you're listening to all these things and you're like, I don't do any of that, I have really prioritized the diet that I need to support my digestion, but you are living like chronically stressed out, maybe because of some emotional trauma or just some other things going on in your life, then it really is time to take a deep look at that. And if you need to, seek help to resolve those things or start like simplifying your life, making more space in your life, sometimes that's just like what we need to do in order to improve our health as a whole. And digestion is a very real area in which that has applications. So, okay, that's it for today. 10 things that are sabotaging your digestion. Please let me know down below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, bye y'all.